The title of today's lesson is Pressure and Surfaces. So we're going to be looking at pressure between two solid objects. So the first thing is we have some key terms: pressure, force, surface area or area, normal, weight, and Pascal. Now before we start, I'd like you to write down the SI units of force and the SI units of area. And consider the following. Why do people in the Arctic wear very large snowshoes? Now I want you to note that it's not because the snow is slippy. It's not slippery. It's nothing to do with friction or grip. It is all to do with pressure. So here's a glossary of the terms that we're using. You can pause the video at any point to write anything down. I suggest you pause it just to at least read these if you don't want to write them down. So we're going to be dealing with an equation for force, pressure, and area. Now force in an equation is represented with a capital F, and its units are newtons. Area is represented with a capital A, and its units are meters squared, and pressure is represented with a capital P, and its units are pascals. So the equation we have is pressure equals force divided by area. Now this is one of the equations that you must remember for your exam if you are doing triple science. So for your physics examinations you need to remember this equation because it may not be given to you. Now once you have remembered it, it will actually make it easier if a question comes up asking for the definition of pressure, because the definition is based on this equation. If you remember this equation, you can say that pressure is the force normal to a surface per unit area. I suggest you copy this down now. Now we're going to apply this equation to a variety of scenarios. These are all written relatively simply, but you need to work out and to understand the process that we need to use every time we use an equation. So a force of 300 newtons is spread over an area of 75 meters squared. Calculate the pressure on that surface. The first step that we should take is to write down what we know. We know F, 300 newtons, and we know A, 75 meters squared. Now sometimes in step 1 you'll also need to convert it to SI units. Step 2 is to write down the equation that we need to use. So if we're looking for pressure and we have force and we have area, that means we're going to use P equals F over A. Step 3 is to substitute in the numbers. So instead of F I'm going to write 300. Instead of A I'm going to write 75. And step 4 is to write down the answer with the units. I'd like you to copy the question and the answer down with each step. Let's try it again with these numbers. A force of 1000 newtons is spread over an area of 5 meters squared. Calculate the pressure on that surface. Step 1. Write down what you've got in SI units. Step 2. Write down the equation. Step 3. Substitute in the numbers. And step 4. Write your answer with the units. Next, a force of 12 kilonewtons is spread over an area of 3 meters squared. Calculate the pressure on that surface. Now this time in step 1 we do need to convert into SI units. Kilonewtons is not an SI unit. So instead of kilonewtons we write 12,000 newtons. Area is 3 meters squared. And so we write our equation. And then in step 3 we substitute in the numbers. And step 4 we write down our answer with the units. Again, pause and copy down the question and each step of the answer, completing this one yourself. Next we have a force of 75 kilonewtons is spread over an area of 5 meters squared. Calculate the pressure on that surface. Step 1, write down what you've got. Step 2, write the equation you're going to use. Step 3, substitute in the numbers. And step 4, write your answer with the units. Finally, complete this one yourself. A force of 4 kilonewtons is spread over an area of 8 meters squared. Calculate the pressure on that surface. Moving on, we're going to be having a look at calculating the force. This is going to be a slightly different process because we've got an extra step that's required. A pressure of 400 pascals is spread over an area of 8 meters squared. Calculate the force on that surface. So step 1, as before, is write down what we've got. We have P equals 400 pascals and A equals 8 meters squared. Step 2, write the equation. Step 3, substitute in the numbers. So this time, instead of P, I write 400. We leave F as it is, and instead of A, I write 8. Then I'm going to rearrange the equation to make F the subject of the formula in step 4. And finally, in step 5, write the answer with the units. Copy and complete. Calculating the force again. A pressure of 50 pascals is spread over an area of 2 meters squared. Calculate the force on that surface. Step 1, write down what you've got. Step 2, write the equation. Step 3, substitute in the numbers. Step 4 is to rearrange to make F the subject of the formula, and I've left step 5 for you to complete. So copy down what's on screen and complete it. Next, a pressure of 20 kilopascals is spread over an area of 8 meters squared. Calculate the force on that surface. Step 1, write down what you've got. Step 2, write the equation. Step 3, substitute in the numbers. Step 4, rearrange to make F the subject of the formula. And step 5, write down your answer with units. Now notice here 20 kilopascals becomes 20,000 pascals. Copy and complete. Again, a pressure of 0.15 kilopascals is spread over an area of 7 meters squared. Calculate the force on that surface. So 0.15 kilopascals becomes 150 pascals. Area is 7 meters squared. Copy this out and complete all of the missing steps. And finally, a pressure of 1.2 kilopascals is spread over an area of 6 meters squared. Calculate the force on that surface. It is now your job to complete every step. Now the last rearrangement, calculating the surface area. This is very similar to the last one, but slightly harder to rearrange the equation. So a pressure of 400 pascals is caused by a force of 20 newtons. Calculate the area of that surface. So we write down what we've got. We have P equals 400 and F equals 20. They're both in SI units, so we don't need to convert. Step 2, write the equation. Step 3, substitute in the numbers. So instead of P I have 400 and instead of F I have 20. Now, we rearrange the equation to make A the subject of the formula. That gives us A equals 20 divided by 400. And we write down the answer with the units.